Okay, so today I'm going to be reacting to Season 1, Episode 3 of Lain, and I don't even know what the title is yet, but it usually says it, like, towards the beginning. So let's just recap Episodes 1 and 2, and it's been pretty good so far. I gave Episode 1 a B grade, I gave Episode 2 a C grade, and that doesn't even mean it was bad, but it was just, it was kind of okay. So Episode 1, between the first two episodes, we've had two characters already kill themselves. We had the girl at the beginning kill themselves, her friend, right? Who's sending everybody these prank emails supposedly, and she hasn't gotten one in a while, right? She's been kind of eagerly awaiting it, and she had kind of that innocence, naivete about it that I like, where, it's like she can't explain, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or it doesn't seem like my email's working, right? Have you been getting your emails or whatever? But she's asking other people. But really what it is she just can't understand why she's not getting one, right? Like, she's being ghosted by this cyber entity of her friend or whatever, something else that it might be, that we finally got a name for it. I kept calling it like the collective or hyperspace or something like that, but it's the wire, I guess the guy says, in the club, who had done that drug. So now, what I'm almost afraid of a little bit is it's trying a little bit too hard to be edgy and all this kind of stuff, maybe too early. Like, again, the first episode started off organic, and there's some good little subtle characterizations, like of her family. Her dad's into computers, but in a way that seems sort of benevolent. Her mom just is indifferent and doesn't like them or doesn't care. And her sister is just kind of, we've only seen her really once at like the dinner table, right? And she's off in her own world, the same way that Lain is about to be off in her own world, but more like the computer world, whereas, the other sister is probably into guys and stuff like that. What I wonder with a character like Lain is, what did she do to occupy herself, for example, before using the computer? She would come home from school and do her homework, and then do what? Like, read books, or like, what was she into? Because she wasn't into computers before. So one criticism that I almost would have here is that it's moved too fast. Episode 1, the girl kills herself, right, the friend. Then Lain takes an interest in computers for that reason alone. Like, she gets an email from her and the teacher's pressuring her to just, you should check your email every day. And the dad's pressuring her because he's into computers too. Like, you're finally taking an interest. You got to keep up with the times, keep up with the future. So then she checks the email, she finds the email from the friend, and it's like she wants to meet her. So this is why she's interested in a better computer. And then in episode 2, the computer arrives in the mail. So up to this point, she's barely even used the computer, but she has like a hyperactive imagination. Maybe she's just a sensitive, personality type where everything affects her more. Because it's like everyone else is using computers too. Other people got the same email too. Right, supposedly it's some sort of prank email, but maybe the one that she got was nicer, like we walked together as friends that one day and blah, blah, blah. Right, whereas the other ones that she supposedly sent were much meaner, the friend who killed herself. And so the point is, like, kind of blaming her, you're the reason why I did it, or, if it wasn't for you, I'd still be here. Something like that was making the other girl cry in class. But the point is that the original cyberbullying, the original, case of ADHD that this girl might have, but she's always sort of spacing out. So maybe she's just a hypersensitive personality type where, these computers affect her more than everybody else. So all these irresponsible adults aren't realizing that, or again, there could be something more to it. She's like a conduit for something. But basically what I'm asking is, how did it go from episode 1, where she's just an ordinary girl who isn't even interested in computers, to now episode 2, where they're introducing this drug, and maybe that could explain it, like she took the drug somehow. It kind of confirmed that she was at the club maybe the other time, being a bit more assertive and aggressive, right? Somehow in one of her trances, she went there at night, the previous night, that her friends thought about, and then, was doing something and being sort of aggressive, and she just doesn't realize it. But the whole point is that, how did we go from her just being ordinary and not interested in computers in episode 1 to now her dad gets her a computer here, but now she's not only into them, but she almost seems sort of corrupted by them, or she's become part of the wire, as they call it. Like, how did that happen? It happened too quickly, and we didn't get a clear indication as the audience, like how. She saw that weird guy on the street. She's seeing kind of things everywhere that she looks, but she's barely even used email, and she barely even knows how to use it. So something sort of happened with her very quickly. She was at the club, and then this guy's about to kill himself, and he kind of sees like the wire or something in her, right? Something flashes in his eyes, whatever, between them. And then she ends up walking up to him and has sort of like a badass moment where she's sort of corrupted by this thing where, she's saying, we're all connected, and then he kills himself. So that's part of him just using the drug possibly and tripping out. But there's also something about her that's like she's some sort of, again, conduit for this, or I don't know exactly what we're supposed to think. And it's going to be one of those avant-garde artsy sort of things, which isn't even necessarily always bad, but you're sort of left to interpret, or people will have debates about it, and it leaves it sort of ambiguous. So even if you criticize it, people will say, oh, you just don't get it. Also, in order to get it, you have to read like a 50-page synopsis, like, whatever, it advanced too quickly. We're like, what happened with her? Why is she like this? What really caused it? Did she take the drug and we didn't see it? Is she just hypersensitive to these sort of things? Has she been sort of corrupted or hacked into her brain somehow by this cyberspace collective, hyper, whatever it is? Right, The Wire, just by receiving that one email, just by using the computer a little bit, like what was the trigger point that made her exactly like this? Where she keeps going in these trances, even though she kind of seemed like that before, where she keeps, maybe she was always like this. She had like this sort of thing in her mind, right, some sort of hyperspace conducive sensibility, and it just kind of came out now with the advent of computers, right? It doesn't work as well because these computers are being treated like a new cutting-edge thing, or like something that she's never used before or taken interest in before. And so that's a little bit different than, it's not like she was a computer nerd and now she just gets deeper invested. It's like her getting invested and interested in it for the first time. So there's something kind of missing with that characterization. And so, again, the family might be sort of indifferent, but they're still sort of well-meaning. And then, her friends, one of her friends is really nice to her, the rest are like kind of just standoffish a bit, so they pressure her to go to the club, and within 2 minutes of her being there, somebody already kills themselves. So you can obviously deduce that it's something about her that's making it happen. He shoots somebody else, and then he shoots her, he shoots himself, obviously. So that was kind of a badass moment, though, where she's standing there sort of in a position of authority and assertiveness that could kind of, even though she's still saying it kind of whispery, she's the epitome of unintentional ASMR, just the way she is and the way she talks. But basically, she effectively makes him kill himself or whatever. He just ends up doing it because her presence is so overwhelming for him. So it's kind of like something mentally that they're all latching onto, where, that they're all part of the Wire, and it's kind of affecting that guy. I don't really know exactly, but that's maybe one minor criticism, though, is just that whatever happened to her and however she's manifesting this stuff, it happened way too fast. So like she somehow spaced out and ended up at the club, right, like when she saw that guy on the street or at some other point. And so she goes ahead and she does that, and if she does that, then she was being all assertive and whatever, and nobody noticed and everybody forgot about it, and then they have her go again, and then it causes trouble. What a great idea. Peer pressure leads to you causing some guy committing suicide, and maybe it was her who caused the other girl to commit suicide too, somehow, but, I don't know. So, like, this Wire is some term that's probably going to be used more. I think that's the first time we've heard it, so I was left to sort of speculate as to what to even call it, like, whatever that entity is that's talking to her could be part of this thing, and whether it's really the friend, whether it's some hacker, whether it's some other, advanced entity that's just like become sort of self-aware, some sort of AI system. But whatever it is, this show is at least a little bit ahead of its time. It's hard to say how much exactly, because I forget even exactly when it came out, somewhere in the 1990s, I think maybe 99. Could be like the 25th anniversary, or maybe I'm thinking of Sopranos, because I was just watching that. That's also the 25th or so anniversary, but yeah, it could be around that time period. A lot of stuff that I've been watching in this sort of format is pretty old because I haven't seen too many shows overall, so it's not like I have to watch modern stuff. But yeah, it's only 13 episodes. I was almost thinking I could do a 2-for-1 because of how long these intros and outros can be, that it almost feels suited that I could just watch 2 episodes, but I'm not trying to rush through it either. I won't do that today, but it's possible I might for one of these sessions. But yeah, it's been solid. She's kind of struck me with her, quiet, standoffish disposition. Like, she's just very reserved and in her own world, which, again, is sort of suited for her getting consumed and obsessed with computers. It suits her personality type, maybe. So the only reason why her friends were picking on her, at first I thought they were saying like, oh, maybe she's the one who, so that the first episode was called Weird, the second episode was called Girls, and again, within 2 episodes we've already had 2 characters kill themselves, and maybe when they kill themselves they become part of the Wire, right, whatever this is. Now, that guy who just killed himself at the club will send her kind of creepy emails as well. But yeah, they introduced us to that drug there that kind of heightens your senses by 10 times, which of course is what that guy was tripping out on possibly. I almost don't feel bad for him though, because he's the one who chose to do it. But no, like they thought they saw her at the club, so that's the only reason why they're talking to her so interestingly. But no, I thought maybe they thought it was her who was sending the emails in the first place, like the prank emails and stuff like that. But no, they thought she was at the club and she was being more assertive, like how we saw her be assertive there at the end before the guy kills himself. So what did she say exactly? She said like, we are all connected together or something, right? Some sort of almost like an ad or product placement with these new technology of computers in this modern day of the show. You know, we can all be connected together. We're all connected all the time. And he's interpreting it in some negative way, like, you know, he doesn't want to be part of the Wire. He doesn't want everything to be sort of interconnected like that. It's too much for him to handle. So I guess it's his fault then. Elitist victim blamer comes out. That, you know, I haven't allocated a character point either in this series. That elitist victim blamer sensibility came out in me very strongly in The Sopranos, because it's like, you know, again, the way the system works is, like my character point system, is I don't really blame characters for what they do as far as right or wrong. Like, oh, you know, Tony Soprano's a criminal. I don't care about that. I'm saying I'm judging them, how good are you at what you do, right? So you decide what you do, but then I judge you on are you getting away with your crimes? Are you being efficient? Are you being careless? Right, whatever it might be. And so therefore, there's a lot of appreciation for game theory, you know, where they do something very impressive. They come up with this really cool plan or gambit or trap or trick or something. And so the point is that, are you, basically in his case, like, are you good at being bad? Like, Tony Soprano's not good enough at being bad. He's just a clown, and he's constantly getting saved by plot armor and stuff like that. So even if Lain ends up being like, oh, she's somehow a bad person, and she's, you know, she's getting these people killed on purpose, or whatever. She has a split personality that's part of the Wire and stuff like this. I'm not judging it based on a moral level, but I can't really give anybody a +1 or -1 because I'm not sure even entirely what's going on with it, or nothing's really happened to justify that. Right, everybody else has been sort of just ordinary. She's been kind of out of this world. And so, again, I just feel like it happened a little bit too fast. Whatever is happening, the way you could maybe explain it is maybe she took that drug somehow. Or maybe, you know, again, what has she done that we've seen, at least on screen, aside from just she's just used a computer a couple times and used her email a couple times. So somebody was chiding her too, like, oh, your imaginary friend is here, right, too. Maybe the one that, you know, she thinks she's emailing or something like that. She mentioned it to her mother, too, very directly. So again, if you really listen, people will tell you, especially children, but she thinks it's just some sort of flight of fancy, or she just doesn't care. My friend who just committed suicide, the key word, emailed me the other day. So even if you ignore the email part and think, oh, it's just a prank, or oh, she's just being silly, don't you think you should always use that as an opportunity and a benchmark to say, well, maybe we should have a you know, that should be a -1 for the mother, actually, for being so callous. Forget about the email thing, whether it's true or not, whether it's a prank or not, whether it's a way for her just to broach the subject. Wouldn't you interpret that as a parent, like, oh, you know, she just wants to talk about her friend who just killed herself, because that's a very traumatic event. So even if she's using the email thing as a placeholder, an analogy, or whatever, right, you should always say, okay, you know, it's not your fault, and blah, 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 you know, have like an obligatory conversation. So the mother gets a -1 for just being a callous, indifferent bitch to the fact that, you know, who cares about the email stuff? I care more about, you know, this girl just killed herself, and it's kind of traumatic for you to go through that, and you know, it's kind of a big deal, and now she would get traumatized again. So it's been zooming in on her eyes a lot, where she seems, again, like she's part of the Wire, and she's no longer a human. She's somehow become, you know, so obsessed with the computers. But I would love to understand exactly how and why it happened, and how it happened so quickly. It almost feels like something that should have been built out to more. Right, all she did was receive a computer in the mail, and all she did was, at first when the computer arrived, I was coming up with some theory that like, oh, this might have been sent to her by some anonymous unknown address, right? And it's actually somehow from the girl who's emailing her and from the Wire and from the Collective, you know, they are somehow sending this to her so that she can join her in the hyperspace. But it was actually just her dad who ordered it. I thought somehow, you know, and that I keep assuming too negative of an interpretation of people. Like even the delivery guy, like, oh, maybe he's going to be a creep and say, this computer is better than mine, so I'm going to try to steal it for myself. Or, you know, I'll come over, little girl, and sometime and show you how it works. Because she's like, I don't know how this even works. But he's just very nice about it, you know. Oh, I'm sure you'll figure it out. And then that's it. But everything can take on like an ominous, foreboding tone. Like you'll figure it out so well that you'll get trapped in there forever. And then you'll become part of the collective cyberspace. But no, I'm going to have a million names for it. Cyberspace, hyperspace, collective. The Wire is obviously what they called it the one time there. Maybe I should do a character point system for the Wire itself. Like how good is it at corrupting her or whatever. So like the email was kind of convincing. So maybe I'll give you know what, I will, assuming it's going to be like that. She's going to be like trying to fight against him, but he keeps tricking her, taking control of her or something. But you know, I'll give a +1 for the email gambit, assuming, you know, you're tricking her by saying some information that only her friend could possibly know, like, you know, oh, we went on that walk one day together. You know, he could just guess that, but for somebody as reserved as Lain, it's possible that she didn't go on a walk with anybody ever, because she's just, but again, maybe this person or whatever it is hacked into that dead person's computer to find out this information. If it isn't actually her, like, I don't know. I'm inclined to believe it is her somehow, but you know, whether it is or not, she kills herself and then she becomes part of the computer system. It's just, either way, it's kind of disturbing. It's either a crazy prank or some dead girl is actually talking to you. So, you know, this is the original Sixth Sense. Like I instead of I see dead people, I get emails from dead people, even though other people obviously were too, like in her class and stuff. So yeah, it was a solid episode. It was, again, the whole dynamic of the friends and the girls, which basically just culminates in them suspecting she was at the club, then bringing her to the club, then somebody kills themselves at the club, and she has, like, this otherworldly moment there, and, you know, they're foreshadowing whatever this thing is going to be. How did I even know, like, why did I think there was such a thing? Like, all you saw was the friend send the email, and it's not like I knew anything about the show, really. So what is this thing that I said, oh, there's this collective, there's this... I guess it's the way they talk about it, like, you know, the way the girl spoke on the email was something like that. Like, we'll be all together here and we're part of something bigger. Or I forget exactly the phrasing, but the way they talked implies like some bigger, you know, that's just what I think about with the series, right? There's some sort of bigger collective hyperspace thing going on where, count how many times I've said one of those terms, but you know, there's just something bigger going on with it that's very either disturbing or, you know, something like out of System Shock, even though I haven't played that very much. I just know that's something like that too. So all this sort of fear-mongering of technology and whatever, right? This was like before Y2K and stuff, so yeah, I mean, it makes it kind of hard to analyze even because she's so nondescript, and it's a show really with a very little amount of dialogue, so on that level I find it kind of fascinating, and it's only a mere 13 episodes too, so it's kind of hard even to judge or interpret exactly what that's going to mean with respect to, you know, it's just very, very short. Even, you know, a lot of animes are pretty short, like they're only 25, 26 episodes, not unlike how a season of an American show could be like 22, 23 episodes, but it's basically a case where those are usually just one season and then it keeps going. But a lot of animes end in like episode 25, 26. So like with Death Note, that's how it would have ended, right? Like episode 25. But then they have the second season, whatever, because they kind of pressured the guy to make it. But that's how it originally was almost intended. Code Geass is like 2 seasons of 25 episodes each. But a lot of these shows are relatively short, right? Anime tend to be like that. But no, her look is very striking. Her quiet disposition is kind of striking. Those could be like my 3 titles. The first episode is, you know, film critic watches Lain for the first time, and it's like, I give like a little subtitle, she is literally me, Lain is literally me. And then episode 2 is like, I don't know. I think I wrote down actually somewhere what titles I want to use. Like, this show has gotten me addicted to that song, Duvet. I have been listening to that a couple times actually since I've been watching this because, it is kind of a good intro song. And then what else would have been a notable occurrence, I guess? Just, she looks a lot younger than what she even actually is. So I have trouble kind of reconciling with that. I don't even fully think I caught what exact age they are. It's almost like they're supposed to be in high school, but it seems more like they could be in middle school too, right? Because she's just so short and small that it's hard to place exactly. But she seems like she's older than I originally first thought. But no, we didn't get enough maybe characterization of her before this. Like, she's taken interest in computers since the beginning of the show, or at least that's the impetus of, what starts happening. But what was she into before this? Like, what is she all about? And it's almost like she was a bit blank slate. She's kind of quiet, reserved, she's not really into anything. So it could just be she's just this natural conduit for the hyperspace, the wire thing, and she just naturally has this sensitivity, I guess, to it. Or whatever. I don't know exactly how to explain it because we haven't seen her do anything extreme that anybody else wouldn't do. Like, just simply using a computer, just simply reading an email, right? Like, what happened to her to make her become like this? And I don't know. It would have made more sense, like, if she took the drug and then that unlocked some special thing in her, but we haven't seen that, right? We saw the guy take the drug, like, in the club, and we don't even know who that guy was, right? We just see him at the beginning of the episode. Some girl comes over and hands him one of these, and then he's very hesitant to take it, and then he just eats it, and, whatever. It's like Excel or something it's called. I haven't been this nervous about an Excel since that Microsoft program from whatever the fuck, Microsoft Excel, that nobody really uses anymore, or like Excel spreadsheets. These are all like titles I could use. This kind of exposes my whole titling thing, but I like to, write these down. I make like little notes to them as I'm watching these shows because then I'll remember when I finally get around to uploading it. It takes me a while sometimes to do that. So like, these are at least like 4 titles I could do. Lain is literally me. Right, just in the whole meme that, like, this is literally me, whatever that meme is, I don't even know. But that's kind of how I felt. Maybe I felt something weird in the first episode where I sort of, at least when I was younger, I was kind of quiet disposition, whatever. And I still kind of am like that, where it's a certain quality that sort of struck me, and just the way she looks and everything is very, I don't know, there's a certain power to that alone. Right, it says a lot without saying anything, just that she doesn't like noise, right? She's on the subway and stuff like that. So, like, Lain is literally me, could be one of these. Then one of them is like, this show got me as addicted to the Duvet song as Lain is to computers, something along those lines. Kind of analogizing her getting addicted to computers, whereas I'm getting addicted to the opening song. And then something else like, your imagination is always better than reality. Something like that could just be a title, because that's kind of what she's going to get lost in, whether it be the computers or her own imagination. And then the other thing is something like, what was the other one? I had like an idea for, the Excel thing I was joking about. I haven't been this nervous about in Excel, although it doesn't work as well in text, because you'd be saying ACCEL versus EXCEL or whatever. But there's like one other one, maybe that was a good title, just something that shows a certain amount of confusion, like my mind is blown, or like I have no idea what's going on, like those just kind of basic expository ones, because the show is so confusing and cryptic. But there's one other one that I had mentioned, and now I can't remember what it is. Would have been like maybe suited for this episode, second episode, I can't remember. I'll have to look at my little note thing. But yeah, I was almost thinking I could watch 2 episodes, but not today probably. But no, it can sometimes be good for that, because basically the length of my whole drive and reaction is effectively an hour. So if it's an hour, then you're basically in a position where, that's long enough to basically do 2 of them and still have a little time for an intro and outro instead of having it be as long and verbose as this. But generally the whole art style is good, the character is interesting. So yeah, the character points I've allocated then, because I've been struggling to kind of do it with this series, because it's kind of hard to judge even what's going on or what characters are trying to do. But the mother gets a -1 for just being so unbelievably callous to the whole mention of the suicide story. Like, maybe that's the first time she heard that friend committed suicide, or maybe everybody already knows, but like, wouldn't that be kind of a big news story or a big deal? Like, this young girl at this school that your daughter goes to, that, whatever, this local school just committed suicide. Like, that's kind of a big deal that you need to have a conversation. Maybe they already had one, but it seems like maybe this is the first time that topic even came up, right? Let alone you're broaching it at the dinner table and you're saying, I kind of want to talk about that. I got an email from them. So again, it's one of two things. Either comfort her for the fact that she got pranked, right, by somebody who's imitating her dead friend, or comfort her for the fact that her friend just committed suicide, or something in between that you can at least extrapolate and read between the lines. Maybe that's why she's asking. Maybe she doesn't really care, but it's like, those are like two traumas in one. Well, on one hand, your friend just killed herself. On the other hand, you're being traumatized by somebody bringing up that memory and that immediate loss that you just had by imitating them and pranking you, or the possibility that it actually could, because like that's maybe how it's written, like, oh, I just got an email from my dead friend who just killed herself, and the mom just brushes it off and doesn't say anything, like, oh, these silly kids and their little flights of fancy, she thinks she got an email, she's just making up a story that she got an email from a dead friend, silly girl, right, like that. But you're omitting the fact of how serious this is. Like, okay, maybe she is silly for believing that the prank email is actually really her friend, but never mind that. On one hand, she's getting pranked in a pretty devastating, serious way, and then on the other hand, her friend actually did just die and kill herself, so that's also something you ought to maybe address to the extent that, you can figure out that that's just something you should probably have a conversation about, and the dad's kind of in his own world too, or you could maybe ask the dad in that respect from the perspective that, he's like a computer expert a bit, and he knows what he's doing more, so whatever. It's a lot of power to give to this girl who maybe can't handle it or whatever. And I'm not even stereotyping. Just because you're quiet doesn't mean anything, but it just means sometimes you're a little more open-minded and objective. And so, of course, people fear that. You see, society fears intelligence and thought and self-awareness and objectivity. All these things are bad when it comes to society. Why? Because of the simple fact that they can't control it. So yes, sometimes it might lead to somebody doing something extreme that otherwise they wouldn't think of doing because they just don't think at all, and they're indoctrinated and do only what they're told to do and only think what they're supposed to think in a reactionary sense, of course. But, or who she kind of reminds me of a little bit is Lucky from Waiting for Godot, where he's quiet and doesn't say anything, right, and just does what he's told, and then as soon as he's told to think, quote unquote, his mind just kind of unleashes and races, and he goes into all these existential and random things and drives everybody else crazy. So then he's made to not think again, basically, but by taking on or off his hat or something, right, is how he's able to convey that, like how he's put in that mode. So in the same way that she might be very quiet and reserved, but then when she goes to the club or she uses the computer or something like that, it sort of unleashes something in her, or maybe uses that drug, it unleashes something in her that she's sort of holding back all the rest of the time, that her, despite not being very outgoing, she's thought a lot, so she'd be very articulate or have like a lot, I don't know, a lot sort of brimming on the surface, so he goes on like a crazy rant as soon as he's able to think, and some of it is kind of existential, some of it maybe is just kind of random, but it's like this overwhelming amount of thought where you get kind of overburdened by it. But no, there's all sorts of negative stereotypes with, like, quiet people can be like sociopaths or killers or something like that. Like, yes, that can be true, but guess what? Also, people who talk a lot can be too. So there's no direct link. It's just kind of like, it's more that it would be hard to tell, right? If somebody who's very talkative, they might let you know what they're going to do, even in a fit of anger or something like that, whereas somebody quiet might do it without you knowing or being able to predict or control it. But there's no reason. Like, why would they do it, right? Even like the sociopath sort of label, it's like, yeah, somebody might be more predisposed not to care or have those sort of moral inhibitions, right? But just because you're not inhibited doesn't mean you're just going to go out randomly and do something, right? There's a difference. You would still need a reason to do it, right? Like, so you might be more likely to do it, or you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't feel inhibited about the idea of doing it, yes, but you're not going to just randomly go out and do it. You'll be like, okay, somebody pisses you off, now you'll do it. Whereas somebody else will be like, okay, I'm pissed off, but I'll let it go, or I don't feel like actually doing that, going out and hurting somebody. So that's the difference, right? So there's too many stereotypes within that, right, where it's not necessarily a bad thing, but people, of course, fear anything they don't understand or they can't control. So they like to oversimplify and label things like, oh, put everybody in a box. It couldn't be that they're just something you couldn't understand, or that their measure in life is different from yours, or that their perspective or something they just don't fit into the little boxes that you try to have for society, because you're not really, I don't know. Okay, so we're going to start Season 1, Episode 3 in a minute here, but I don't even need to say Season 1, because there only is one season, and I try to keep myself in the dark about stuff like that, because it can give away, then you're expecting something. See, if I had no idea it was 13 episodes, it'll give you the sense that it might be ending, but you might think, oh, it's going to go on for 10 seasons, so I have no idea, but whatever. I normally try to keep myself in the dark, but with this series, it was kind of hard to even find somewhere to watch it, so it was impossible to avoid seeing that. So we're going to start in 3, 2, 1. I wasn't entirely happy with that, so maybe I'll do it again, actually. It always has like a delay at the beginning where I can't tell if that's just meant to happen or what. We're starting in 3, 2, 1. So then you get this present day, present time thing, which I don't know what that is, and he laughs like a fucking maniac. Then we get to enjoy Boa Duvet again. I think it always starts with that, right? There's never been a scene before that, right? It always starts with this one. Yeah, the last episode was decent, but again, it's like you pick a plot line, it's about the club and it's about the drugs, so that's all we were worried about. Like, she gets her new computer, they think they see her at the club, then they take her to the club, then the guy kills himself at the club. It foreshadows that with him using the drug at the beginning, obviously. We didn't really properly meet that character. He just kind of takes the drug and then kills somebody at the end, but like, who even is he? It wasn't the same guy she saw on the street either. But no, it's basically a case where whatever happened with her happened too fast, with and to her. She went from barely even knowing about computers or caring about them to now, just because she's interested in the email, we kind of missed a step. How did she become this conduit of the wire, or whatever it is that she was doing? How did she approach that guy so assertively? How did she get him to kill himself, or why is she freaking the guy out? Like, it seems like it just happened too fast. We didn't see like a good trigger point as to what actually caused it. Right, it's almost like she's just innately, naturally like this, whatever it is. It just has this effect on people. And beyond that, we have a case of, I don't know. It just developed very quickly, so I'd love to see some holes be filled in here. Like, what's the aftermath of the second person killing themselves within 2 episodes? We're still at the club. That's at least good follow-up. We need some closure on that. Don't just go back home or back to school like it's no big deal. She's on the wire. Psych. One of my favorite TV shows, starring James Roday, and I forget actually who plays Gus. The best buddy cop dynamic ever. We learn. We learned her last name, at least. I like how much Alice cares about her. She feels bad for taking her to the club. she looks much older in this scene than she normally does. Like she somehow looks taller or something. So some other entity or character is talking at the beginning. She's in the wire now. So she somehow, how did she become part of the wire? That's all I want to know. Like, what did I miss? Everything is just so simple. I love the style of this. Like, the dialogue is very minimalistic. It's not eloquent or articulate, but it just somehow there's a tone. There's a great tone to this show where like it's very serious and sullen, and I don't know, I really like something about it. The visual style is like very, I don't know, just there's a sense of emptiness and just there's nothing is what it seems. I don't know. She keeps having these hallucinations and stuff, right, all the time. So that's going to have something to do with it. So that's obviously part of her being part of the wire. So by simply using a computer and checking her email, she became part of the wire. Like, so then how come everyone doesn't? I guess it's just something, again, innate with her. This is where her obsession, I would say, begins, but it seems like it already started. Where she sees that the computer's already on, doing its own thing without her activating it. But nobody really got to the bottom, including the police, of like, why did you walk up to him and say that? Which he said something like, we're all connected all the time, or something like that. And then he shot himself. Very ominous music. This scene almost seems like it's setting up for a jump scare, but it's just how this show is. She just went to look at the computer and then fell asleep immediately, and now she's going to go into trance and go back to the club and be assertive like they were saying the night before. That was good foreshadowing, like, oh, there was this girl who looked just like you who was acting all crazy and assertive, and then we see her kind of act like that. But even her version of assertiveness is kind of light. She was still sort of whispery and not too... So she really wants to see, I like that reflection in the eyes there. Haven't been this excited by a Navi since Ocarina of Time, or haven't been this apprehensive about a Navi since Avatar. Insert some joke here. That could be one of my titles too. Turn off that computer. That'll give you there's some sort of fallacy like that. Sleeping in the light of a computer screen or a TV screen can have bad effects on your eyes or something. Mess up your REM sleep cycle. It's like her hair color changed now just in the lighting. Damn, it's so bright in there. Almost like she's in another dream sort of state, which is going to keep making you question that. Like, what is she seeing for real? What is in her imagination? Why is it in her imagination? There's very little dialogue, too, which on one hand makes it perfect for reacting because I can just ramble on, but also... it's because of this... She doesn't know that she went to the police station or something. Because you tried to tell her about the email suicide situation earlier, right? My dead friend emailed me, but then she ignored you. So why should I tell you now, right? You start to lose trust in your parent figure. So that's the -1 character point for that. But the point is that she didn't hear about the girl committing suicide, or she didn't hear about her daughter being involved with this and the cops. You need like a better news system in this area about her going to the police and stuff like that. And then also... makes it seem like people are following her, like the creepy guy on the street or somebody in the car. he's going to be like the chosen one who has to do some battles, epic battles to save the world in cyberspace. Or they're going to be talking in her head. Good thing it's quiet, unlike that first day where you were yelling at everybody to shut up just because you hate the noise. Even the kids at school heard about it, but her own mother didn't. She just doesn't give a shit, or what? Kind of a weird look, almost like a creepy smile there from Lain. I was going to say, her excuse for oversleeping was like, this is like the girl who killed herself talking to her. You're just desensitized. Blame the computers for that too. Yeah, don't take it seriously when you see somebody die. Like you didn't get her in enough trouble. No, it's just empty. Is there anything inside it? This clown. How is she supposed to know? And of course, Lain doesn't know either because she's no computer expert. My point was, my little joke on that scene, oversleeping is so embarrassing, being late for school, the mom says. It's because dad got me this my dad got me this awesome new computer system that I was, playing video games on all night because she just got the new computer. And so she was just derping around on that. So blame the new computer system that the mom is so, seemingly against too, or just sort of indifferent to. So... the shift happened right around when we noticed her eyes starting to look like that, and nobody else seems to really notice, but they keep zooming in on them and stuff like that. So yeah, the reason why I... So these are all like voices from within the... all like people within the wire saying all those things. Yeah. Or he does know, but he doesn't want her to mess around with it. It's something too strong, right? If he simply didn't know, he would have been nicer about it or tried to figure it out, right? The inquisitive computer type that he is. Now she's going to mess around with it anyway. But no, like the lights being off and doing it in the dark is a sign that you're kind of obsessive about something, or, you know, why not turn the lights on as you do it? Use the computer and stuff. This car is always out there looking for her. Now, is it actually there? Because everybody else seems to act like nothing's happening, right? Even these things that we see clearly, like the Siberia Club, like nothing's a big deal. Even the girls were pointing that out. Like, somebody just died and we don't give a shit because we're just desensitized kids. Returning to the scene of the crime where you made the guy kill himself. No, maybe she just actually is a little schoolgirl. Or everybody seems like they're going to be creepy, but then they're just not. Like the delivery guy, and then he didn't do anything. He was just fine. Right? Like even that guy just let her be. What, do you just go around asking random people? Everybody's so nice, like... They could have pretended it's useless and then I'll pay you $10 for it. Because she's so innocent and doesn't know anything. What does this look for? And she has the schoolgirl routine going even more. Like, that girl looks even younger. Everybody looks way too young. So she's in, like, 9th grade, so that always tells us something. But she definitely doesn't look like it. I mean, I don't know. You could easily pass off that she's in middle school. Like, all her friends look older than she does. But her voice sounds, like, so defeated and so soft, so light. Isn't that the guy who voiced the Emperor in Code Geass? Or, I mean, Dietard, not the Emperor. We're not even here, like a Jedi mind trick. All these parents don't give a shit, especially the moms. Okay, now she looks like a woman in this scene. This is Alice, right? She looks like, okay, she's a high schooler, maybe beyond. Or wait, is that her mom? I'm confused. Never mind, she is a woman because she's... She doesn't like how... Oh, that's the sister. Never mind. So that's the episode. So we get a little closure on the club. We get some very direct implication about The Wire. Just the kids talking about, oh, it's no big deal. And so my whole thing is just like, she's already been in The Wire, she's been her crazy self. So does that mean when she was at the club, that was in The Wire? Because they said, oh, she was acting crazy. So she went in The Wire, went to the club before, not when the guy killed himself, right? When they thought they saw her, but that doesn't make sense. So, like, she went to The Wire in the real world where her friends are, or her friends went in The Wire too and saw her in The Wire in the club. But it seems more like she went in The Wire, but she was somehow at the club and in The Wire at the same time, and so they thought that was her, but it was actually the version of her that's in The Wire that's, like, more crazy that the guy wanted to see. Right, he was into that. And the point is that ultimately, you know, it's a contrast of her characters. So the only time we've seen her, like, in The Wire is if we've seen her when she, or even like that assertive side, is when she walked up to the guy and said, like, we're all connected. But she wasn't in the, like, it's going to make you kind of gaslight you in the sense, like, when are we in The Wire, when are we in the real world? But the point is that her friends are there, so they have a certain credibility, like, they wouldn't be in The Wire, or they wouldn't act the same way if they were in The Wire. Like, I don't know what exactly it is. It's just an alternate reality where you can be in this at the same time, or I'm not really too sure. So what else did we learn from that episode? Basically, I like the scene at the police station. Everything is written in, like, a very nondescript way. I don't know how to explain it. Like, Les Samurai is like that. It's a Jean-Pierre Melville movie from France from, like, the 19-something, I can't remember, 1950s, 60s, something like that. And, like, all the dialogue is just very basic and banal, but because of the tone and the solemn nature of the story, it kind of works, right? It's like exposition, but it feels kind of organic or just something straightforward. So, like, the cop was saying, oh, don't say quiet next time, and just, like, very simple things, but they're still characterizing her. She's quiet, she's laid back, you know, she's just whatever, reserved personality type. And so now she goes from there. Then you see those creepy guys outside the house. That was her sister. Okay, so I haven't seen the sister too many times. And she was way more talkative here, right, than anything else. We only saw her, like, in the one scene, I think, where she just was having dinner and then she left, or lunch or whatever, and then she left and said, oh, I already had a big lunch, so it must have been dinner, obviously. So I was even saying, like, she looks like a real woman now. So how old is she? I thought that was her friend for a second. Maybe they look similar, like the Alice or whoever. But the point is that she's like maybe college age, or she's like a senior, as opposed to ninth grade. I'm not really sure. But the point is that, you know, we get the callous mother, so it's the same mother we're talking about. I don't know why I thought we were looking from her friend's, one of her friend's houses, her friend's perspective. The point is that we get some explicit talk about the wire. So, see, at least this device that she got answers the question, like, how did she get in the wire, or how is she in this position? And that device would explain it, but how was she already in it before that? How did she get into it then? Right, just by simply using the computer? Like, I'm still not understanding that point, even if this computer is more advanced. It was even before she got this more advanced computer, though, right? She got this in the mail after they already said, I thought, after they already said she went to the club, or it happened like almost at the same time. So what was she doing before then? She was using like an old crappy Navi. So, yeah, what else happened? So we have the little cop interrogation moment, so at least she's suspect number one. Like, if something else happens and she gets taken into the police, then, you know, she could always tell them, these creepy guys are following me, but now she'll stand out if she ends up there again. And then it's not like she was involved in the other suicide of her friend. She just happened to go there, or she just happened to know who she was, but she wasn't there at the time, like with this one, so that doesn't make her look suspicious, really. But then, you know, she's asking the dad about that, but he doesn't say anything, and so he doesn't take it from her either, though. He could say, oh, whatever, that's dangerous, or it's nothing, I'll just get rid of it. But instead he lets her keep it and just leave it at that. So the dad seems like a good, benevolent figure, but he's also maybe too nice. Like, if this, I don't know. He doesn't want her to become part of the wire, even though she already is. And then that one scene in the school is great, where like you hear all these voices about people in the wire, and it's like, I wasn't afraid to lose my body because the real world doesn't matter anymore. That's a great creepy way to rationalize like why the girl killed herself at the beginning, potentially the friend or something like that, right? You become so consumed by the wire that the real world doesn't seem real anymore or valuable. So the wire becomes the real world now, right? Like it's some good dynamic like that. Like when you go to sleep and dream, is that the real world? And when you wake up, that's actually the dream? Like, how do you know which is which? But, that's a good dynamic. And then we see, again, that car outside her house on the street. But see, the fact that the sister saw them, at least shows you it's probably the same people in that car that she keeps seeing. That at least proves that they're real in some other way. So you have the creepy car, you have the creepy guys with the gear, and they're probably looking for Lain because she's part of the wire and has some special power over it that they want to take advantage of. And then from there, you have, what else happened? You have the desensitized kids who don't really seem to care, even though they just saw somebody kill themselves. Nobody really suspects Lain of anything or understands what's going on with her. The dad was doing that for her own good, like lying that he didn't know, I assume. Just the way he handled that. He said, I don't know what it is. And then, he was being a little bit weird about it. Like, if you really didn't know, you would help her and try to figure it out or something like that. But the fact that, you were so direct actually outs the fact that you did know. Like, you do know, it's just that you don't want to tell her and you want to protect her from it, basically. But then you also don't take it from her or anything like that. Like, all the characters tend to be much nicer than I'd expect. Like, those kids at the club could have lied to her and said, oh, that thing is worthless, or they could have just snatched it from her. Or, she's just so naive and open to such things. So they help her in the sense that they're honest with her. Like, they could have just said, oh, no, we don't... that thing's useless, sell it to us for $10 and you'd be lucky, or it's useless, just throw it away. But they're actually honest to the extent that it ends up being a case where they're super honest and they say there's no way you can sell that, right? Like, why not just gang up together and be degenerates and say, oh, that thing's worth nothing, so just, you should sell it for like $10. You'd be lucky to even get that for it. And then, she doesn't know even what it is or the value of it. But everybody keeps being very honest with her and not taking advantage of her. So it's like a very I don't know. Everyone just seems like a genuine character, like the delivery guy. Why not just keep the thing for yourself or something? You'll get fired from your job, I guess, but whatever. He seemed like he was inching towards that. Since she doesn't know any better, why don't I just give you this other crappy computer I have, and you wouldn't know the difference? But, you know, she's very naive, but, like, she's very, you know, out of touch with technology and computers, but she's also naive. Like, she doesn't know that people could potentially take advantage of the fact that she doesn't know anything either, right? And the other guy recognized her at the club probably from The Wire, which, again, I don't know exactly how we can interpret that. It's just a different virtual reality, but it's taking place in the same area, so you could go to the same club in The Wire as you are outside The Wire, or something like that. So whenever she goes to the club in The Wire, she's crazy and wild, and then whenever she you know, whatever. Whenever she is not, she's reserved, like her normal self, with the whispery ASMR voice that sounds almost so defeated and almost so like she's just struggling to talk. Again, like an unintentional ASMR type of voice that she has. And I imagine that's similar, like in the Japanese. It's a great characterization that they've done with her. The way she looks, the way she talks, the way she acts, her personality, everything is like so template for this type of thing, where she is just like a blank slate for somebody who would get obsessed over something like this, because they're so like lost almost, right? She just seems lost, and so she needs something to kind of dump her passion and energy and thoughts into. And so again, the girls were being a little weird. I like the apology from the one girl at the beginning, who I think her name is Alice, and then she I've been really bad at keeping up with characters' names in all these series I've been watching. I just have trouble. But no, Alice is being at least nice to her and apologizing. The other girls don't really seem to care. And also, those girls weren't doing anything with that, right? They didn't know what it was or something. And so, therefore, basically, they didn't try to take it either. And then the kids at the club didn't try to take it. And her dad didn't try to take it, even if that's for her own good. So she's just very like a sitting duck. Anybody could have just snatched it, and then what's she gonna do? Go all mean, wired self on them and beat them up or get them to kill themselves? So yeah, at least they're more explicit about The Wire. And again, I would have reversed these two episodes. I would have put this episode first and had her set this thing up, and then have what happened in episode 2 happen now. That way it would have explained, like, oh, because she got this special device from some unknown person potentially, right? Then that allowed her to connect to The Wire and then get that guy killed or whatever happened, right? It would make more sense. Because up until now, we haven't seen anything like that. All she did was get an email from the one chick who died, and then get the computer from her dad, right? Which is like a new model of the thing. So now there's going to be some fighting around the house of like, you know, the dad wants to get rid of the thing, of the computer, or the sister's kind of like, no way that you're going to end up being like your dad and obsessing over the computer and stuff. So, yeah, what else happened? So, no real character points to a lot. I like that scene at the beginning with the detective. At least they're trying to give you some closure. I like some of the talk about The Wire. At least there's some good exposition there. What else happened in, like, the middle of the episode? Like, I kind of missed maybe something. You know, she's seeing creepy stuff on the street. She's hearing, like, creepy voices in her head, like from The Wire, about how I didn't need my body anymore and this and that. And, you know, on the train. So, again, the train was so loud before. And then she told them to shut up. And they never started talking again since. Because this time, she's hearing voices in her head, but it's quiet enough in the train to be able to hear them so easily, right? But no, it's going to be some ongoing debate that people would have, like, when is she in The Wire and when is she in the real world? But I guess the clue would be her behavior. She's always so sullen, so they're saying if she's in The Wire, she'd be acting more crazy like she supposedly was, you know, at the club the first time. So yeah, that's pretty much a good episode. I'll give that one probably a B because it gives you some good exposition, and I like some of the scenes in between. Like, that was a really good scene in the school. Like, at least this was more coherent as far as what's happening. That episode 2 was completely all over the place because I didn't understand. So we gave a B, C, B right? Episode 1's a B, good introduction. Episode 2 was a little convoluted C. Even if it's stuff that comes out later, it just was a little bit hard to follow. Then episode 3, and again, kind of jumping the gun. Episode 3 was back to some good exposition. Again, there's a lot of simple interactions that happen, right, where the mom doesn't seem to care about anything. Like at the beginning, she's trying to tell the mom something. The reason why I was late was because I went to the police, but the mom neither cares enough to really press about it, nor does she even seem to know about it. Then the kids at school are indifferent. She's hearing voices in her head, and then something else happens too. Let me almost skim through it a little bit here. Like, these episodes go by pretty fast, maybe because they are shorter than what I'm used to for, I was watching at least The Sopranos, so that ends up being a lot longer, like double the length of the episodes. Or we'll just listen to Beau and Duvet again here, I suppose. But no, you can almost watch 2 of these in one session because they are so short, but not in this one. But no, this was a good, enjoyable episode, and again, some decent exposition. I like the low-key nature of it. It's hard for me to explain it. Like, I'm normally somebody who holds writing to a high standard, but it's rare that you can get the tone across so well without having eloquent dialogue or anything like that. Everything's just very much to the point. And her personality is so hard to... Like, I want a character like this. Maybe Oslo August 31st, the guy from there who, tries to kill himself and all that. It's a character who's so sullen and so, I don't know, just like serious and quiet that it's hard for me to... Like, they tell a story and they tell so much, even without saying anything, right? Just by what they don't say. So yeah, we start off at the police station, we go back to school, we have a bunch of gossip and conversation about that. And then you might think, oh, she's an outsider from these conversations because everyone's gossiping about the drama and she's taking it seriously. But it's not because of this traumatic moment. It's like, she was always like that. She was always an outsider, kind of. Yeah, I like the interaction with her dad as well, that like he knows more and he doesn't want her to get involved in that, but go into her room in the middle of the night and steal it from her is for her own good. So we're already on episode 4 out of 13, though, so it makes it seem almost too, I'm complaining it was moving too fast like in episode 2, but now I'm confused because, it's too, but that's the greatest strength of the show, even if it's not really a net positive. It's just something, it can communicate so much with so little. The dialogue is so simple. Maybe it's even a localization issue, but I don't mind it. So what happens around the middle of the episode? That's the main thing I want to see. She's seeing, when I realized that, I was no longer afraid of losing my body. So she keeps hearing and seeing things, but nobody cares. The teacher in her class and stuff. She's scribbling like crazy. It's a lot for a young girl to handle. I like the self-awareness from the girls, like, I think there's something wrong with us. Yeah, no shit, dude. You should be in therapy after all the shit you've seen. One of your classmates killed themselves, and somebody kills themselves in front of you at a club. An out-of-body experience, like they were all in the wire together. Yeah, Alice is her name. I'm just kind of re-watching, though. We already got through the episode, obviously, a while ago. But I went back. Like, her normal speaking voice is just like that. It's such a deliberate decision. Or, like, the lighting is sort of understated, like how it's always dark in her room when she's on the computer. All these, like, basic techniques that set the mood. This series is a master of mood setting because it's, like, just... everything is so sullen. So these girls don't know what it is. They don't know what it is, so they just move on. Then you have these creepy looking guys here. I'm sure I know one of these voice actors, like Deotard Reed from because we're not even here. Because they're manifesting only from The Wire. But again, you got to lay out some ground rules of how it actually works. So she says kind of what it is, even though she doesn't know what it is, and then the guy says it at the club. You got to go by her eyes almost to see whether she's in the trance or in the thing or not. Some hacker got in my voicemail, so we keep hearing like little subliminal messages or whatever from The Wire, I suppose. I haven't been this excited for a Wire since that show that I haven't seen that's considered one of the best shows of all time, called The Wire.